Which players should you be trading for before the 2022 season kicks off? All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode of Locked On Dynasty is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, how's it going today?
It's going well, my man. I mean, we're here. I mean, things have begun. We got a game on Thursday between two elite teams, and then the boulder just starts rolling down the hill, chasing Indy Jones. Man, it's going to be great.
I love it. I love it. We have made it. We are now just a couple of days away, Matt, as you said, from that big Thursday game. It's not just any kickoff game. It's a big one. Buffalo and the defending Super Bowl champion Rams. So two of the best teams in the league. Obviously, two teams that we're excited about seeing, and hopefully we'll see a lot of points to get the season started here in just a couple days. Well, Matt, here on Locked On Dynasty, we're kind of into regular season mode, even though the regular season's not quite here yet. And every Tuesday, we are going to bring you some Dynasty transactions. You and I will be talking waiver wire targets. We'll talk about some players to trade away, some players to trade for. And as I said, even though the season's not quite here yet, we're close, but we're going to go ahead and start that. So Let's kick it off with some waiver targets, and I dug pretty deep here, Matt. I've got a few guys. I thought you would like this. I've got 3 names here to talk about, and these players are all on dynasty rosters in less than 20% of leagues, and our sample here is safe leagues, dynasty leagues. So we're talking about around 1,500 dynasty leagues that our buddy Scott Fish runs over there at Safe Leagues. Pretty much an even split between Superflex and one quarterback dynasty leagues. And I've got 3 names who are on, as I said, less than 20% of rosters. And these are certainly not players that we have talked about yet. But we'll hit them today. Let's start
real quick. I appreciate the work you did to dig this deep, but I just want our listeners to know this segment every week we'll usually have a little more splash than today. You know, someone had a huge game off the bench, on Sunday, or a big injury occurred. So these 3 guys may be fine, but usually this segment's going to be a little more exciting.
Yeah, that's fair. There will be, as you said, players that are going to be a little more sought after, I would say, on a weekly basis. Than these, whether it's due to injury or breakout performance or what have you. But, Matt, maybe these are the 3 guys that are benefiting from a breakout or from, hopefully not from an injury, but certainly in one case that could happen. Let's start here with a rookie, Montrell Washington. He's a rookie wide receiver for the Broncos. He's on 14% of dynasty rosters over at Safe Leagues. And, this was a late round target or a late round pick for Denver. Wide receiver, I don't think was viewed as a need for that team, but the camp reports were really good on Montrell Washington. He did make the team, which is really saying something given the wide receiver depth there. And given the fact that he was a late round draft pick, I don't know if we want to dig too deep into the specific player, but when you think about that situation, I mean, we've got obviously Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy there. They did lose Tim Patrick. KJ Hamler trying to come back from the injury. Sounds like he's probably good to go. Do you see this as a situation where a guy like Montrell Washington could step up and, maybe even be a factor on a weekly basis?
Maybe. I think if you're in such a deep league and you're considering making such a move, and you're right, there was a lot of good buzz around him. We know Wilson is there to stay. They're married to him, young coach, new ownership. I mean, Denver is going to go on this course for some time. But the guys ahead of him, you mentioned Judy, Hamler, Sutton, they were all drafted around the same time, and maybe they're not going to invest in all of them. That could open a long-term spot in terms of just roster construction, salary cap space. If he continues to impress, maybe he's one injury away, and you already mentioned what Hamler's going through, to actually seeing the field for 50% of the snaps, 40% of the snaps. So
right.
I think you keep an eye on him, and maybe he's a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, and I should mention those safe leagues, dynasty leagues, I believe 28-man rosters over there. So pretty
Makes
deep
sense.
leagues compared to most. I mean, if your league is 20 players, 22 players, 25 players, Montrell Washington's probably not on your radar, probably should not be on your radar yet. But 28, 30, or even larger than that, then certainly a guy you should be considering. Next one is kind of, I guess, in a similar spot. One of the what's expected to be one of the top offenses in the league. He's not a rookie, but he was a late round rookie a year ago, missed the entire season for the Dallas Cowboys. It's Simi Fehoko, big wide receiver out of Stanford, I believe. And Dallas certainly has some questions at that wide receiver spot. Obviously, lost Amari Cooper this offseason. CeeDee Lamb is expected to step up as the clear top option. Michael Gallup's going to miss some time recovering from that ACL. And after Gallup, there's some question marks. There's a lot of options. It might be the rookie Tolbert, who we like. Noah Brown is another guy. And you could honestly probably throw Noah Brown in the same conversation, because he's rostered in under 20% of those dynasty leagues, right around the same percentage as Fehoko, actually. But with this Dallas offense, are you taking a shot on a guy like this, on a guy like Noah Brown, or are you pretty much just waiting for Tolbert to come back?
I mean, you're pretty, of course, that's the obvious one, but in these super deep leagues, I think these two that we've brought up are very similar in that the quarterback, the offense in general, can buoy a average player into a productive player into a good player. I think his surroundings are favorable. There's one of the best offenses in the league the last couple of years. I think Dak's going to be a monster this year. Yeah. And he has a little more pedigree than Washington with Denver. So I'm interested. I didn't love him coming out of school, so I haven't been a big fan, but there's opportunity there. I mean, James Washington isn't even much of a barrier when he gets back.
Yeah, true. I didn't even mention Washington.
Yeah,
he's on the IR, so he'll miss a few games at least. Again, more opportunity for Noah Brown, for Fehoko. And again, you need to be in a deep league to consider those guys at this point. Last one is probably a case of insurance. A case of insurance in a super flex league. John Wolford, he's the backup quarterback with the Rams. And the talk really for the past month or so has been about Matthew Stafford's elbow. Head coach Sean McVay says he's good to go, but there's also reports that this could be a lingering issue all year. Mm-hmm. So certainly if I have Matthew Stafford on my roster, I'm going to try to find space for John Wolford as well.
I kind of like this one. It's super flex, of course, because the things I know are Sean McVay really likes Wolford. He went to him at times, during his tenure. I think that he has trust and likes Wolford as a player. That's all you need to know in that organization. McVay runs the show. And I know I bring everything back to the Steelers, but this Stafford thing just is very similar, eerily similar to me than the Ben situation. They both just took such a beating over their great careers, big physical guys that can throw the ball through a brick wall. And they're playing through it. Don't worry about it until takes one hit or something goofy happens and they shut them down for the year. Like, oh.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that is not the case, but if it is, If it is, you better be ready. Again, as I said, especially if you've got Stafford on your roster, drop that 10th wide receiver, that 4th tight end, make a spot for John Wolford. Owned or rostered in only 11% of those safe leagues, dynasty leagues, and that is super flex data. So even in those super flex leagues, he is out there in most of them. Matt, when we come back, we're going to talk some trade targets and players to trade away before the season kicks off.
Yeah, and another note, the Rams don't have much in the way of draft picks. It's not like they're not going to have a first-round quarterback beating down Wolford's door. So I think it's smart to pick up Wolford. I also think it's smart to look at prize picks. I've told you about them before. I think there is money to be made here because this is right up my alley, because this is exactly how prize picks works. You grab between 2 and 5 players, and if they score more or less than their prize pick projection, it's like an over-under type of system. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people that might just get lucky and put the right lineup together. It's just you versus the projections, which I think is great for someone that's knowledgeable. Really, maybe you only know 2 or 3 teams really well, or your favorite team really well. You could build a group of those guys or a matchup you love. And it's not just NFL. I mean, it's NBA, Major League Baseball, hockey, golf, college football, college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports. I mean, this list is crazy. NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, cricket, Euro basketball. I'm a big believer. If you are a disc golf expert, you will beat the system and destroy this and just win money left and right. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Super safe and fast withdrawals. Currently, it's operational in over 30 states as well as Canada. So go to prizepicks.com, sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code locked on, all one word. So if you put $100 in, they give you $100. If you put $50 in, Prize Picks gives you $50. And don't forget to enter that promo code locked on.
Matt, the season is now just a couple days away. We're going to see player value in dynasty leagues change massively. Who is one player that you want to go out and target in these next 48 hours before the season begins and before they really gain some dynasty value?
This was a tough one to narrow down because we always
Absolutely.
say, yeah, I mean, this is the time of eternal optimism. No one's going to get hurt. All these guys are going to get better. I went with Javonte Williams, though, and kind of just backing my play from last week or the week before when I said I think he's going to be RB1 at this time in the dynasty world. I'm blown away with him as a player. I'm warming up to that offense more and more as being an excellent offense. I don't know that Denver's defense is nearly as good as people think, so he might even be catching passes more and more. Melvin Gordon looks like a speed bump, but he's this big a speed bump. I mean, for the big picture, he's not in the way, and that's why you can still get him at a decent price. Williams, I mean,
right? Yeah, Williams is a first rounder in our current dynasty ADP, but that doesn't mean there's not room to grow, right? I mean, Matt, if you're right, and he's the RB1, we're at this time next year, we're probably talking about a player who's a top 2 or 3 pick overall. And now he's a late first rounder. So definitely still some meat on the bone. If you're making offers, what type of offers are you making? What are you looking to spend? I know we usually think about those trade offers in terms of draft picks, but it's tough to trade those 23 rookie picks right now, especially the way the season started for some of those top college players this past weekend. So let me ask it this way. Would you rather go from like Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift down to Javonte Williams and try to get a little something extra? Or are you packaging up? Maybe you're adding to Barkley, or you're adding to, Joe Mixon or someone like that, Dalvin Cook. Like what feels like the better? And obviously that's dependent on what your roster
depends on team.
Like.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, as a rule of thumb, I think the first scenario is smarter. I mean, like going all in on a running back we know is risky big picture, as opposed to downsizing just a little and picking up a little something on the side. So yes, but boy, the way you said that about turning Cook into Williams, I would give you plenty to do that, because I just feel like I just bought 5 years of RB1 play, which, if you think about it that way, would you give up 2 firsts? You'd certainly give up a first for 5 years extra of RB1 play than what you had on your team. So I would certainly be interested in that. What if I offered you Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson for Williams?
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's probably closer to what you would have to do on a Cook deal. You said you would give plenty along with Cook. I think it would take plenty.
Yeah.
If you look at ADP right now, Javonte Williams, as I said, a late first rounder. Breece Hall right behind him. So if you're talking Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, that's a pretty strong offer, at least based on the ADP data for Javonte Williams, and one that I think if you got Williams, you would have to strongly consider that. So I like that type of offer. If you're dropping down to Barkley, Cook, Kamara, Mixon, yeah, you might even have to give that 23 first on top of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that would definitely be painful. My guy here, the player I want to go target and acquire before it's too late, is Elijah Moore. And I've kind of been banging this drum all off season. If you check out my rankings at Dynasty League Football, I think I have him ranked at 14 or 15 overall in single quarterback Dynasty League. So I'm looking at him essentially as an early second rounder in startups. I think his ADP is in the 5th or 6th round. So I'm way ahead of consensus or the community on that one, and I feel okay about that. Right now, it just comes down to a question about the Jets offense in general and their quarterback situation. And there are some doubts there. There are some things making me not second guess the call overall, but at least, making me wonder if I should slow down. But, in the end, I believe in the talent, still super young, really flashed as a rookie in those same, negative situations with poor offense and some poor quarterback play. So, that kind of gives me confidence not to worry about those things quite as much. And, I would be pretty aggressive here. I mean, even you talked about Garrett Wilson. Wilson is ranked ahead of Elijah Moore in most rankings and in our ADP data as well. Really, any of those rookie wide receivers, I would gladly flip. I mean, Drake London, Burks, Pickens, any of them. Yeah, any of them. I would rather have more than any rookie wide receiver this year. So that's one place to start. Ultimately, if I have to give the 23 first, I'm probably doing that, but it's tough because we're looking, as we've talked about before, at a pretty stacked class there. So Elijah Moore, Javonte Williams, those are the players we want to go out and buy before it is too late. When we come back, we'll talk about a couple players we want to get off of our roster before football kicks off on Thursday.
So, folks, Built Bar has been with the Locked On Network for a very long time. I don't know that we've had a better or longer sponsor the whole time. And they get delivered to my house. And my 16-year-old, who basically now lives in the weight room, I'm 6'3", he's already taller than me. He devours the box like as it arrives. So if you're into, health, nutrition, really paying attention to what you put in your body, Built Bars are perfect. And there's a new favorite, cookie dough chunk puffs. They have this light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course are covered with 100% real chocolate. I've told you my wife's kind of a chocolate snob. She doesn't like that covering that are on a lot of these bars, has no complaints, and really likes the Built Bar ones as well. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein. That's what my son does because he's lifting so much. Run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It will be the perfect treat. Or you can find a really good hiding place. Just hoard them for yourself, which is how I have to eat Built Bars around here because they're gone so fast. Chocolate dough chunk puff is also covered in 100% real chocolate. They're healthy and tasty. They're covered with a light, fluffy texture. Super good. The thing about all the Built bars are made with a collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the cookie dough chunk puff, but there's so many other flavors as well. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they only taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to built.com, use our promo code LOCKEDON15, that's LOCKEDON15, and you get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15.
Matt, we're about 2 days from kickoff of the NFL season. This might be your last chance to get these guys off your roster before the season begins, before they start losing dynasty value. The guy I'm worried about, again, you won't be surprised, Matt.
No,
Najee Harris, Pittsburgh Steelers running back. The ADP is just way too high on this guy. I don't think he reproduces that the rookie season he had anytime soon. I'm worried about the offensive line. Increased weapons in the passing game. I think they could go a little more pass heavy than they did last year. It just feels like everything going against Najee Harris. You talked about Javonte Williams earlier as a trade target. If I've got Najee Harris on my team, pivoting from him to Javonte Williams, even if I have to add a little something, is a move I would be looking to make.
Yeah, I hear you there. I do a preview article for Steelers.com every week, and I dug in heavy to Steelers Bengals this week. And here are some Najee numbers that are a little frightening from a fantasy perspective. So he caught 94 passes last year. That led all running backs. That doesn't shock people, I don't think. But he also led the entire NFL in receptions caught behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know if those free points are coming anymore. He also played 84% of the Steelers' offensive snaps. That was the highest percentage of any running back. And just to put it in perspective, Kamara was at 76. That was second. I mean, that's well behind. And that's the equivalent to when you add it up, basically, of Najee playing like 15 more quarters of football than even Kamara. Like, those things aren't sustainable. He also led the league by handling 85% of the Steelers' carries. Jonathan Taylor was second at 77%. Like, is he going to be that much more than Taylor, use that much more than Kamara? And then here's the startling one that I don't know gets better, is he averaged just 0.93 yards before first contact. So there were 200 guys that had 200 or more rushing attempts last year. Harris was worst on all those. So he's getting hit the earliest of any ball carrier in the league.
Yeah, honestly, all of that makes his rookie season even more impressive in a lot of ways. Right. But it also makes me, again, concerned that we're not going to see those types of numbers and that type of production again.
The volume.
Right. He's valued as a first rounder. His ADP did drop a little bit. We're actually going to get into ADP of all of these guys tomorrow. That'll be our main topic on tomorrow's episode. ADP dropped a little, but he's still a mid-first rounder, still valued based on that data ahead of Javonte Williams. So if you can make that move, go do that. Matt, who's that one player you want off your roster before Thursday?
Tyreek Hill. I mean, I get the buzz there. I mean, it's an improved team. I just think it's time to go. Change of teams rarely treats receivers great. I don't love his quarterback. I trust his coach, but it's a first-time head coach. And I know he's more than just a speed guy. But if he goes from a 4-2 to a 4-4 type of player, I just think that changes his value drastically for our purposes.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And as we talked about before, Tyreek he's already lost some value as a result of that trade. We saw him drop from essentially an early second rounder to an early third rounder, but still plenty of value to be had in a trade. Lots of young wide receivers in that same range that you could pivot off of, right? Yeah. I mean, maybe you
try Elijah Moore.
I think you can get something along with Elijah Moore for Tyreek. So you don't even have to do that even swap, but DJ Moore, DK Metcalf are guys in that range. Deontay Johnson. Would you rather have Deontay Johnson or Tyreek Hill?
That's a tie. Deontay.
Yeah, I'd rather have Deontay as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a player who's been gaining value. He's moving up into that range. So lots of options if you're trying to pivot from Tyreek Hill to a younger wide receiver before the season kicks off. As I said earlier, this Tuesday show every week of the regular season will be a Dynasty transaction show. We'll talk waiver wire targets, trade targets, both players to trade for and to trade away. And we'll do that every single week. Thanks again for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. Local team experts of all Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. That will do it for today's show. Please make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty and subscribe to the show at Locked On Dynasty on YouTube. You can follow Matt at Williamson NFL, and I'm Ryan MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.